Let's play a little game today. Hi, I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this episode of Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. And gentlemen, I read a story today from the Reuters wire service, as they used to call them, about a meeting between President Trump and top Democrats. Yes, sir. There's nothing. We're not in the game yet.
Oh, never mind. I was just testing the buzzer.
Okay. So, since you just tested the buzzer, we should tell people I've equipped both Steve and Bill with buzzers. Actually, Hillary Clinton had some surplus buttons that said reset on them. And so we've supplied them with these reset buttons. So we're going to play a little game. I'm going to read some quotes from this Reuters story about the meeting between Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. Yes, Mr. Whittle?
Donald Trump. Who's Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
President of the United States.
I'm sorry, mostly I was just testing the buzzer because I know how Hillary Clinton's buzzers work, and I didn't have an awful lot of confidence, so I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
That's right. Actually, as you recall, Hillary Clinton's buzzer actually said overcharged. It did not say reset. You got it wrong. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to read through some quotes from this Reuters story about this meeting, which I'm sure you've seen something about on the 24/7 GabFest shows. And it's the three main characters here are President Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. And Reuters characterized this meeting as a remarkable public argument, the likes of which is seldom seen before the camera. So, gentlemen, as I read... Yes!
We need more of those. Screw this behind closed doors stuff. You know, we didn't used to do this. Roll the cameras, let them hash it out in public. I just saw a Drudge headline this morning that Trump's approval is up to 49%. He may actually crack 50% if he keeps butting heads with Nancy Pelosi.
Could I have a production assistant just move that button a little further away?
No.
So here we go. Here's the first quote from President Trump. If we don't get what we want, I will shut down the government. I'm proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck, because of the people of this country don't want criminals and people that have lots of problems and drugs pouring into our country. Yes, Bill Whittle.
Yeah, the best part of that entire statement, which is 100% true and actually should be engraved someplace, maybe on the wall, if it ever gets built. But my favorite part of that is the comma, Chuck, comma. I'm going to shut it down if I want to, Chuck.
And by the way, because of the rules of protocol, Schumer is going to have to address him as Mr. President, while Trump goes, "What's up, Chuck?"
And later you'll see that he does refer to Nancy Pelosi not as Your Eminence, Your Majesty, or anything of the sort. And let's see here. I'm going to leap ahead in the quotations here. Trump says they get into a debate about whether he ought to get his $5 billion to build the wall or whether Congress ought to provide the $1.3 billion that's already designated for that. And Trump says, if I needed the votes for the wall in the House, I would have them in one session. It would be done. And Pelosi says, well, then go do it. Go do it. Stephen Green.
I love watching Nancy lose her stuff. And now, actually, you know what? I'm going to back off from that. I said the wrong thing. I used to love watching Nancy lose her stuff, which she'd do on rare occasion and almost never in front of the camera. You'd have to get a kind of behind the scenes report where they'd sort of hint at what she was doing. But the old gal has lost a few steps in the last couple of years, and if she wants to go head to head with Trump, who is just this sort of aggressive, mean guy, and this is what she comes up with, man, it's going to be like that Monty Python sketch where John Cleese was the boxer beating up the little girl in pigtails.
So Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House spokesperson, called the meeting a constructive dialogue, and she was glad it happened on camera so that the people could see Trump fighting for the border wall. Chuck Schumer immediately went out and said that Trump had a tantrum and that the president showed what he really wants. He wants to shut down the government. Stephen Green.
Yeah, I had this one prepared. I was hoping you'd use that line. Mark Knoller of the MSNDNC, he tweeted about this Schumer press conference. He said, Schumer said the meeting with Trump was supposed to be no press, but he called in the press and went on a 10 to 15-minute diatribe. This is Schumer complaining. And then Knoller says that he and Pelosi went to the White House to give Trump two options to keep the government funded and open, like reasonable people do. And Emily Zanotti, who I've known for years, she retweeted Knoller and said, you can tell how badly they got their asses kicked by how many individual press conferences they feel they need to hold after the fact.
Well, immediately after that meeting, the Democratic House fundraising arm sent out an email to its supporters asking for money.
Of course they did.
Perhaps that requires no answer. Let me throw in one sort of off message moment in this story in Reuters, and it was down pretty far in the story. At a certain point, the media were asked to leave the room. Oh, let me do the lead up to that, because the media were actually asked to leave the room at a certain point. However, before that happened, Trump was having a little debate with Chuck Schumer when Schumer brought up the fact that the Washington Post has actually had to create a whole new category of Pinocchios in their sort of lie meter. What is it, Glenn Kessler that does that?
Yeah.
Anyway, and so that got them going back and forth a little bit. And Pelosi said, let's call a halt to this. Trump says, it's not bad, Nancy. It's called transparency. And so then Trump is bragging about how he held how they held the Senate. And Schumer says, when the president brags that he won North Dakota and Indiana, he's in real trouble.
Number one, this is great. I love the back and forth. I really do. This is politics like maybe we've never seen it before, and that's great. Here's what I'm worried, though. I thought the cameras were there for the whole thing. You just said that they kicked the press out for the end. I worry it's going to be
either before or after. I'm not sure which.
I'm worried. Well, not really. I just want to make a comic point here. But what if it's the reverse of that Saturday Night Live sketch where Phil Hartman was playing Reagan the mastermind? You remember that?
Yes.
And 17 cents. I know. So after the cameras turn off and Trump is alone in the room with these two, he goes, now listen, Madam Speaker, do you think I did okay for the cameras?
So here was the off message moment, and Bill Whittle, that buzzer of yours is getting cold, and I'm a little concerned that Steve is going to take this round from you and maybe the grand prize. Nancy Pelosi said when they were together in private that she and the president, at least, prayed together, and she recounted the biblical story of Solomon, who asked God for wisdom when, and I'm embellishing here, when God basically said, Solomon, ask for whatever you want, and he asked for wisdom that he might govern this people. And
this is supposed to make me feel more affection for this communist who's trying to destroy the country? Is that it? I think that Solomon ought to respond. I think that Solomon ought to say, well, let's cut Nancy Pelosi in half, and Chuck Schumer can have one half, and Donald Trump can have the other half, and then we'll see which one of those two runs forward saying, no, please don't do it. Let Donald Trump have all of Nancy Pelosi. But here's the thing, Scott.
I predict that Trump would be the one who would step forward and stop the slaughter.
I think you're probably right. If you look at the serious thing about this is there's a couple things that are just absolutely causing me endless joy. First of all, this is the first time I'm aware of that the Republicans have ambushed the liberals on camera. The first time they've done an on-camera interview ambush. We're so used to walking into this minefield and sitting down. Oh, we're going to have an interesting conversation about, President Bush. We're going to talk about your budget and so on. And he sits down and they roll the cameras. They said, how does it feel to have 4,000 dead kids on your hands, And it's like, this is not what we were here to talk about. So Donald Trump has again proven his mastery of the media, and he has basically put on camera Schumer and Pelosi doing two things. One of them is saying, turn the cameras off so that we can do some politics.
Yeah.
That's good for us. And the other thing is, he made them say repeatedly when they were offering, Trump says basically, I want my wall, I want $5 billion, or I'm not going to sign the bill, and we'll shut the government down. And they said, well, our bills provide lots of border security. Well, it's not enough border security. Well, no, it's a whole lot of border security, Mr. President. Honestly, just look, it's lots and lots of border security, so no wall. Well, it's not enough, there's no wall, there's no border security. So basically, the second thing that Donald Trump has done is make Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer agree that border security is of the utmost importance, when in point of fact, both of these people run on sanctuary states and unlimited immigration and all the rest of this stuff. So I think it was like watching I think it was like watching a really excellent matador with an exceedingly old half-lame bull is blind in one eye, just kind of putting on the show for the fans, you know?
Let me address that particular point, Bill, that you just brought up. It says President Trump said that both sides agree there's a need for border security. And then there's this little back and forth. Schumer, yes, we do. Trump, good. Schumer, we do. Trump, see, we get along.
See, this is why Donald Trump is president, because I saw the transcript and I just came back to the one thing, we're talking about. We did a Bill Whittle Now, I think, yesterday or airs somewhere around this time on your hard disk at Google. But we were talking about the shifts in the staff and losing the chief of staff and how chaotic and how disorganized the whole thing and how unpresidential sometimes it feels.
Yeah.
But this is it. Donald Trump is president because he fights. I can't spare this man. He fights. He's a drunkard. Well, then I want whiskey like the kind he drinks distributed to all the rest of my generals. This is what political fighting actually looks like. And there was a time when Republicans could actually fight a political battle, but it hasn't happened since, well, certainly not since Ronald Reagan. Yeah. And to watch this guy basically put them in a situation where they're saying, can we please turn off the cameras and discuss this in private the way we wanted to when we first came in here? No, Nancy, the cameras are great. That's called transparency. It's just a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Her actual quote on that was, I don't think we should have a debate in front of the press on this, to which Trump said, we're doing this in a very friendly manner.
Yeah.
I never think of Trump as the great quote guy, but there is two of them in one meeting, and it's because he's not in front of a big crowd just doing his thing. He's actually in his feisty zone doing that thing, and I really like that place.
But seriously, Scott, that's what he achieved. He achieved two enormous things. He achieved the on videotape, beyond any questionable doubt. You got to see the two leading Democrats saying, we don't want to talk about what we want to talk about in front of the American people. We were under the understanding that there would be no cameras here, and the President of the United States saying, you say you're running a transparent Congress, here's transparency. Look, there's the American people right there through that lens. And secondly, he got them to commit on camera to the fact that border security is extremely important. It's the one thing we can all agree on, right? We're all friends here. Look, we all agree that border security is the number one issue, and I just think it was an absolute masterpiece.
Well, to finish this up, the story gave a little bit of color that said, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner and Chief of Staff John Kelly and a couple of other White House staffers were kind of standing off to the side while all of this was going on. But Mike Pence, the vice president, was sitting next to the president of the United States, silent and stone-faced.
He was probably embarrassed. I'll bet he was embarrassed.
Yeah, I bet he was.
And that's okay, too.
So how does a guy like let's play this out? Just last question for you guys. President Trump serves 2 terms. Mike Pence somehow is still alive after all of that, and becomes the Republican nominee. How does he walk in this man's shoes?
Wow.
The same way that George Bush Sr. walked into Ronald Reagan's shoes, by promising more of the same, and a commitment to the previous 8 years.
Yeah, I don't know that. Oh, sorry.
No, which you don't. We're not going to see. I almost said we're not going to see another president like Trump in our lifetime, but that immediately grabbed myself and said, no. The next thing you'll probably see will be,
Don Rickles.
Kim Kardashian will be the next president,
Yeah.
or something like that.
The Rock. It's going to be Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
But this is, and we've all talked about it, and it's a lamentable fact that this is the president that the country needs now to fight against these people, their backroom deals, their constant lip service of saying one thing and then doing something else. Oh, border security, absolutely. No, we want to be a sanctuary state, and we want all the immigration we can get as long as they don't come into my compound. It just made me proud. It made me proud and happy. And furthermore, I was not embarrassed by this. This to me wasn't something like a tweet war. It's like, well, Nancy, here we are in front of the American people. Now, what was it you wanted to say to me about keeping the government open? We don't want to talk about this. We want to talk about this in private.
Not in front of the
We're all
children.
friends. We're all friends here.
There's a scene. There's a scene from the movie Dave where Frank Langella, who plays the chief of staff to the president, played by Kevin Kline, is trying to overthrow this fake presidency, because Kevin Kline is actually a body double for the real president who's had a stroke. Anyway, there's a cabinet meeting, and all of a sudden all these people from the media start pouring into the cabinet meeting, and Langella looks at his little press aide and said, what's going on here? Why are all these people in here? And he says, oh, it's the president's 100th day or 25th press conference or something, and we thought it'd be nice to bring the media in. And then the president proceeds to lay out his agenda in a way that embarrasses not only Frank Langella but other members of the cabinet who have been guarding their little fiefdoms. Now, it's a liberal movie, but it's sort of the same idea here, is that President Trump, I think, in a real stroke of genius, knowing that if he had a private meeting with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, the characterization of that meeting after the fact would be entirely in the hands of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and their
Mark
cronies
Knoller
in the mainstream media. Exactly. So instead, President Trump basically threw open the doors to the White House and invited the rabble in and said, I want everybody to see how these kinds of discussions go. That he got to express his point of view. America got to see Nancy Pelosi attempting to shut down this transparent operation of negotiation with the government. And no matter what you think of the president's position on the border wall, you've got to admire the fact that even when he pulled a fast one, so to speak, on Nancy and Chuck, he did it in a way that was completely above board, all cards on the table. Everybody gets to see what happens. And we could use a little more of that kind of sunshine in government. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.